Hi, I'm Michaela. I'm here at Gertens in our nursery, and I was just going to talk to you guys about preparing your gardens for winter. I'll break it down into a couple different sections just because there's a lot of different kinds of plants that we want to prepare. First off, one of the things to know is like what is happening in the fall. So as we get colder temperatures, like you're going to see, the plants actually get a signal in order to start preparing for dormancy. Ground perennials, anything that's herbaceous, is going to store all of its energy, water, nutrients below the ground. And then our shrubs are going to do majority of the same, with a lot of that nutrients being stored below the ground, but also some is stored in that above ground wooded system in stems, canes, and so forth. So when we're thinking about winterization, we want to make sure that we're protecting that root ball. We want to protect from air fluctuation that we see in December and November, as well as April and March, where we get really, really cold at night, but kind of warmer during the day. And so anything we can do to prepare our plants for those kind of conditions, the better they'll survive. So when we start with all of our zone 4 and lower shrubs, the best thing to do is just let them go dormant. You'll see that they're going to change color, drop their leaves, and everything's going to be stored below the ground and a bit in their wood. And so if you just let them go dormant, you should be good because they're hardy for our zone here. However, if you want a little extra insulation, you can just bury their root ball. So we're going to make sure that root ball stays nice and warm with a bit of mulch. So you can just mulch at the base of each of your shrubs so that they're better protected during the winter. But anything zone 4 should be pretty set. The other thing we have is any of our perennials. Those you're going to want to make sure that you allow to go fully dormant before you touch them. So you want to make sure any of that greenery above the ground goes completely brown or orange, and it will drain all of that nutrients into the ground. You can actually see the plant do this. And so as long as you have the plant completely browned off, then you could do some cutback in the spring, but we like to advise people to wait to do that as long as they can, because the plants are going to actually provide protection for our pollinators. So instead of cutting back in the fall, I'll correct myself from earlier, but in the fall you can do some cutting, but we actually want to advise you to wait till the spring because our pollinators are going to lay eggs for next year in your hollow stemmed flowers. And then they're actually going to also try to utilize any of that matted down old growth as insulation for their own hibernation. So if you can wait to do any cutting back with your ground perennials until late spring, that will also help our pollinators that we want to have around for next summer. In regards to our shrubs real quick, the timeline on pruning also would look similar to our perennials. You want to wait till next spring. And that's because right now, as the shrubs are going dormant, they're putting all their energy and resources into that. And pruning actually sends a signal for growth. And so to have that kind of juxtaposition in communication to a plant for growth while they're trying to go dormant based on temperatures, sometimes you can shock them. So if you're able to wait, even if it's a big shrub, the best thing to do is potentially wait until next spring. Any of your early bloomers are already setting their genetics for flowers right now. So like our lilacs and our azaleas. So make sure you do not touch them until after they bloom. And then anything else that is a May or later bloomer, you can prune 1/3 of that plant next spring. But this fall, you can just leave them alone. Now we'll talk real quick just about our zone 5 and above. So that's like our butterfly bush that we sell here, some daisies, some dianthus. Those are going to be zone higher than we are here, so they're not going to survive the winter without some special care. So this is when we're really going to focus our winterization. Unlike everything else that we talked about prior, that's a zone 4 or lower that will do well kind of on their own. Now with the zone 5 and highers, you want to focus a little bit more on helping them through the winter. So our main focus in doing that is going to be below the ground. We want to protect that root ball that has all of that good stuff for their summer of next year. You want to make sure you do some mulching that is a larger mound than even your zone 4s. This mounding technique of mulch and sometimes leaves that you can put on top of the mulch, you want to wait to do until most things are completely dormant so that we avoid any kind of introduction of fungus or mildew. So if you can wait to do that winterization until closer to mid-late November, then you're going to be good at preventing any kind of fungus while you're also trying to protect them for the winter. Last are just some couple special considerations. So we've got new plantings. Anything that you put in the ground this planting season, so whether or not it was May or this October, you're going to want to do a little bit of extra winterization than maybe something that's been in the ground for a while, even if it is cold zone hardy for Minnesota. That you're going to do that same mulching mound just at the base, and you're going to want to water all the way through the beginning of November, if not a little bit later. And that just helps the plant focus on a good preparation for fall. And then we have our evergreens. Evergreens, you're also going to want to do late watering. The more evergreens can soak up into their plant cells during the winter that are exposed to all of our harsh winter conditions, the better. And lastly, we just have roses. One of the things that you can do if it's a zone 4 or lower is just make sure that root ball, again, is well protected with some mulch and some leaves. It is typical to lose canes sometimes during the winter, so don't worry about having to cover the entire plant. We just want to make sure that root ball survives the winter. Anything that's that lower zone, you can just do a nice couple inch mulch mound, and then you can cut down some of those branches during the fall, but I just advise that you do a little dab of, let's say, Elmer's glue on each end, because right now at the fall, something else that is trying to really prepare itself for winter is cane borer. So by just doing a little dab of Elmer's glue anywhere you make a fresh cut on rose bushes is going to help protect them from having cane borer utilize them during the winter. Anything that is a hybrid tea rose, we just want to especially protect. So whether or not you do something like the Minnesota tip, which will help a zone 6 especially, and there are lots of things from Minnesota Extension that can help you learn how to do that, or if you just bring the plant down to 1 foot and then mulch as much of that plant as you can, again, making sure you protect those canes, then your roses should be set for the winter as well. And so with protecting those zone 5 plants a little bit more, especially any new plantings, as well as just doing a little bit of care for your zone 4s and lower, even though they're not necessarily needing it, you can have a very protected yard that's ready for any winter conditions we have this fall. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any more questions, please come see us at Gertens. Lots of our experts are going to be here through the rest of the fall to help you with any concerns you might have.